Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another top 10 video, and today we'll be counting down my top 10 favorite action figures of 2022 thus far. Now, I do understand that I am a bit late to the game on making this video since we are well past the halfway point of this current year, but I figured, what the heck, better late than never, and I also wanted to take a little bit of time to play catch up, you know? So before we get into the meat and taters of this video, I just wanted to cover some ground rules I laid out for myself when determining what did and didn't make it onto this top 10 list. Starting off with rule number 1, pretty self-explanatory, but if it did not come out in the year 2022, automatic disqualification from my list. Now, I do understand that there is a bit of a gray period between December of last year and January of this year, and we're going to be talking about a couple of figures that fall into that category, but for the most part, everything that I picked to put on this list came out this year. Rule number 2, I have to have it and have already reviewed it, because if I don't have it, I can't give you guys my full thoughts in a video review. Therefore, I don't know how good or bad a figure is. Granted, there are some figures I have picked up, like this Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Alley Viper here, that are really freaking awesome figures, but I just have not had the time to review them yet. So if that's something you guys want to see, pipe up in the comments below. Let me know you want to see a review of that Alley Viper, because to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure when I'll get around to that, because I just got a boatload of stuff in from BBTS, so my palette is pretty full at this current time. Rule number 3, and this is a new rule: 1 figure per toy line, because I want my list to have variety, because in previous years, I feel like my list could be a little bit repetitive and dominated by one specific toy line, whether it's Mythic Legions, Marvel Legends, or McFarlane Toys. So this year, we're going to be implementing this new rule to give the list a little bit of variety. That said, for example, just because I include a Mattel Masterverse figure does not mean I will not be including a Mattel Motu Origins figure, because while they may be the same property, they are 2 different toy lines. But with all that being said, having a look-see at some of the honorable mentions here, yes, I like the Symbiote / Black Costume Spider-Man, yes, I like the Masterverse Triclops, yes, I like the Deluxe Spawn with Throne, and yes, I like the Rebirth Batman, but I already picked Marvel Legends, Masterverse, Spawn Universe, and DC Multiverse figures to go on this list. So while these are some of the best figures of the year so far, I didn't want my list to be bogged down with multiple entries from the same toy line. Which leads me to rule number 4, how much did I need the figure personally? Which leads me back to the honorable mentions we just talked about. Yes, I like this new Symbiote / Black Costume Spider-Man. It is an improvement over the ones I had, but I was okay with the ones I had on the Pizza Spidey Buck. I didn't have a problem with those. I just happen to like this Buck a little bit better. And yes, I do like the Spawn with the Throne, but I was perfectly content with the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. In fact, I still think that is a little bit better of a figure than the Deluxe Spawn with the Throne, in my personal opinion. And yes, I do like the Rebirth Batman from DC Multiverse, but I was content with my Mattel DC Classics Batman, the more traditional looking one. That said, there are figures on this list that desperately needed an update, for lack of a better term, and ones that I needed for my collection personally. So that's why they got on the list, and well, these guys didn't. That said, moving on to rule number 5, and this is the big one: no quality control issues allowed. If I had to either replace a figure or replace a part of a figure or do a major overhaul on a figure to make it to my liking, automatic disqualification from my list. So as much as I love the NECA Toys Disney's Gargoyles Ultimate Demona and McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Rebirth Man-Bat Mega Fig, those had major QC issues, at least on mine, and thus they are automatically disqualified from my list. Some QC issues actually still aren't resolved as of the time I'm recording this video because distribution is still a bit shaky, so that's kind of why this video is a little bit late. But with all that being said, that is it for the ground rules. We already talked about the honorable mentions sitting before you. Again, I like all these figures. They just weren't strong enough to crack the top 10, at least not right now. My opinions could change, but at the end of the day, I am who I am, and for the most part, I think this list is going to remain the same, at least until we come back around to this 6 months from now. Hopefully not at the tail end of January, but somewhere mid-January. I'm going to try and be a little bit early next time, alright? But with all that being said, without further ado, let's get things started with the number 10 spot. Kicking things off at the number 10 spot, we have the NECA Toys American Werewolf in London Ultimate Kessler Wolf. And the sole reason that this guy ranks so low on this list is because I am pretty certain that he did come out in 2021. Granted, I never saw him, but I did see enough people have him last year, so he will inevitably be edged off by a future NECA release sometime later this year. But don't get it twisted, I still love this figure. I think he is freaking awesome and is worth mentioning on this list. Coming in at the number 9 spot is the Hasbro Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Deluxe Class Pterosaur, who was part of the Golden Disc collection, which was exclusive to Amazon, and that's partially the reason he ranks so low on this list, because he is an exclusive, and if you're a collector in this day and age, you know how much of a pain in the butt it is dealing with exclusives. That, and he does feel significantly cheaper compared to his Maximal counterpart, Airazor, which he shares some engineering with. That said, Pterosaur is a core member of the Predacon roster, although I am very much looking more forward to Tarantulas and Inferno when they come out in the Legacy Collection, but I figured for now, Pterosaur would represent Transformers on this list. Coming in at the number 8 spot is the Super 7 Disney Ultimates Prince John and Sir Hiss from Robin Hood, one of my absolute favorite Disney movies of all time. So why do they rank so low on this list, you might ask? Well, if I'm being 100% honest with you, it's because they will inevitably be edged out by the star of the show himself, good old Robin Hood, who's set to come out any day now, so that's kind of another reason I was holding off on making this video, but it is what it is, I suppose. And don't get it twisted, I did have a lot of fun with not just these guys, but the other figures in Wave 1 of Super 7's Disney Ultimates line, albeit with some looseness and missing accessories here and there, particularly for Prince John. He did not come with the iconic thumb-sucking head and hand, which would have set him over the top and made him a 100% perfect figure in my opinion. That said, fingers crossed that we may get an accessory set for the characters from Robin Hood, including some extra disguises for Robin himself, and of course the iconic thumb-sucking head and hand for the phony King of England here. Coming in at the number 7 spot is the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Cobra Bat, one of the best figures in the G.I. Joe Classified series thus far, and a mashup of 3 of the coolest 80s characters of all time, Boba Fett, Trapjaw, and the Terminator. I mean, you can't get much better than that, right? Shy of slapping some rocket boots on this guy so we could say he is also a mashup of Iron Man as well. And I do understand that not everyone likes Iron Man, but hey, I think he's cool, so why the heck not, right? But with all that being said, this figure is a prime example of how much the G.I. Joe Classified series has improved over the past year. Granted, it's not perfect. I think there could be some adjustments made, particularly with the drop-down hips. I don't think they're entirely necessary. It could be cut out completely, but at the end of the day, you're definitely getting what you're paying for here, and that's more than I can say about a lot of Hasbro releases these days. Coming in at the number 6 spot, and speaking of Trapjaw actually, we have the Mattel Masterverse Masters of the Universe Revelation Deluxe Trapjaw. Granted, this isn't a perfect figure, mostly because the arm attachments are a bit tricky to swap in and out without using a little bit of heat. And I'd be lying if I said I was 100% on this redesign of Trapjaw. I much prefer the 2000X look for Trapjaw with the more Frankenstein aesthetic and exaggerated arm attachments and robotic arm itself. But at the end of the day, this is still a really solid addition to the Masterverse line and warrants a spot on this list. Coming in at the number 5 spot and sticking with Masters of the Universe, we have the Mattel Masters of the Universe Origins. Say it with me now. Clawful. You guys know I had to do it. I couldn't resist because I absolutely love Clawful, one of my favorite characters from Masters of the Universe. Granted, he ain't no Scareglow, but he is one of my favorites nonetheless. I love his vintage design, I love his 2000X design, I love his classics design. I'm not too crazy about his Filmation design, a little bit too serpent-like for my taste, but to each their own. It is cool in its own unique way, but when I think of Clawful, I think of this right here. This is the physical embodiment of Clawful, in my opinion, and this is a figure we desperately needed in the Motu Origins line since day one, so he definitely warrants a spot on my list. Coming in at the number 4 spot, we have the Hasbro Marvel Legends Walmart exclusive Doctor Strange. Now, I know what I said about exclusives earlier when we were talking about Pterosaur, but hear me out. We have desperately needed an updated classic version of good old Dr. Stephen Strange here for the longest time, it seems. The last time we got a figure of this version of the Sorcerer Supreme was way back in the Toy Biz days, in the first Build-A-Figure wave ever, Galactus. And while that figure was alright for its time, it hasn't held up well at all. So this is more than a welcomed addition to our Legends collections in this current era of Legends. Granted, it's not a perfect figure by any means. Personally, I think there could be a little bit more contrast in the design on his chest, a little bit less gumminess in the knees, and honestly, for a character like this to not come with more accessories is a bit of a bummer. I would have gladly paid a deluxe figure price to get just a few more alternate hands and magic effects with this guy, but this is a version of the character we have needed for a very long time, thus he earns his place on this list. Coming in at the number 3 spot is a figure that not everyone needed, but it's certainly one that I needed, and that's going to be none other than the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Rebirth Clayface Mega Fig. Now, why did I need this figure so bad, you might ask? Well, as much as I love the Man-Bat figure in this line, I was content with the Man-Bat I already had from the Mattel DC Universe Classics line. However, I never finished the Collected Connect Clayface from the Mattel DC Multiverse line, so to have a chance to buy a finished Clayface for $30, mind you, is a definite steal and is why he ranks so high on my list. That, and he just looks freaking cool, man. I mean, just look at that thing. Pretty sweet, right? You know you want one. Coming in at the number 2 spot is the McFarlane Toys Spawn Universe Haunt, who made his action figure debut for the first time here in 2022, and I couldn't be more excited about that. I have wanted a figure of good old Haunt here since I first discovered him several years ago when he made his debut in Image Comics, and I have to tell you guys, out of all the figures in the Spawn universe line, it seems like they put their all into this one right here. Even more so than the Spawn with the throne, which is ironic considering that Spawn is the Todd Father's baby after all. But with that being said, this guy comes with all the accessories. He comes with a second set of hands, an effect piece, and a base piece that is unique to him. So for those reasons, and those alone, I had to put him this high on my list. That, and he just looks freaking cool, man. And last, but certainly not least, my number one favorite action figure of 2022 thus far is going to be none other than the NECA Toys Disney's Gargoyles Ultimate Bronx. Not only because he is one of my favorite characters from the Gargoyles animated series, because you can't go wrong with a Frank Welker voice character, right? But he also comes with something that we have needed for our toy shelves ever since Goliath came out. And after saying that, I assume most of you guys know what I'm talking about. That's right, this guy came with the infamous cloak wings for our Ultimate Goliath figure, so he takes up just a little bit less space on our shelves. Granted, it would have been nice if he came with those in the first place, but at the end of the day, beggars can't be choosers, and it's nice enough of NECA to offer those to us at all. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 favorite action figures of 2022 thus far list. Let me know what your guys' top 10 is, but as always, if you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more content to the channel. As always, I got plenty coming your way, but if you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when we're still waiting for that NECA Toys D&D Ultimate Warduke. I mean, what's the deal with that thing? It seems like I pre-ordered it forever ago. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.